how did I meet Hannah? Well, I have to start from the very beginning to be able to tell you that story. It all started when I was in high school. I always used to love the ladies. I remember before homecoming or some big high school dance, I always go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, and make sure that I combed my hair and combed and wetted my eyebrows. I remember just staring at myself in the mirror and thinking, dang, I look good. You know, so back then, that's I think where it really got started in terms of me like being really serious about looking for a girl. But as I got older and as I matured a little bit, I remember that I heard a preacher this one time talk about the importance of having a prayer confession for your wife. You know, some of you may be wondering like, well, what's a prayer confession, right? Well, it's when you write down the exact attributes and qualities that you're looking for in a significant other, and then you just sort of pray that God will give you a woman who has those qualities. So I remember like taking the time and writing down, you know, I got a wife who looks hot, I want a wife who cooks, a wife who cleans, and I would get up every morning, I would say my prayer confession. It was very, very important to me.
How did I meet Keelan? I'd have to start from the very beginning with that story. So I grew up in a Christian home, wonderful Christian parents, and they set a really high standard. So obviously in high school you're not going to meet anybody, but as my 20s went on, every guy that I was kind of interested in, God sort of said, no, he's not the one, move on. And so I thought, well, maybe this next guy. Nothing ever worked out. So my friends were meeting people getting married, and I loved it. I loved their weddings. But there was one moment I remember walking up the stairs and getting really teary-eyed thinking of my dad turning 60 and thinking, was I just going to be single my whole life?
Now, it was about probably 4 years I was single in between the time that I started saying that prayer confession and the time that I met Hannah. And in that time, something very funny started happening to me. You know, I remember I started cooking for myself a little bit because I had no one to cook for myself. I was just a bachelor. I started cleaning a little bit. This was before I had a cleaning service, you know, because there was no one else who would clean my house. I remember I started working out a little bit just to make sure that, you know, I had my body nice. And, you know, the interesting thing is that as I was saying this prayer confession, God ended up molding me in terms of what I was asking for. I really think God did that to prepare me for Hannah when I met her. Now, I remember the first time when I heard about Hannah Bonham. It was back in March of 2014. Now, you see, I have this friend. His name's Scott Wojtas. He's like my Polish brother from another mother. And this is the thing about Scott. He's a very interesting character and a very particular person. Scott, he's one of those guys who's always well-dressed, wearing these crisp jeans and nice buttoned-up polo shirts. He's extremely committed to physical fitness. He always has his hair all gelled up. Scott, he's one of those dudes who looks good, he knows he looks good, and he wants to let you know that he knows that he looks good. But this is the thing that about Scott when he first met Hannah. He's coming back from Oklahoma to Chicago from a friend's wedding where he gets thrown in the back seat with Hannah.
I'm really passionate about East Garfield Park, community projects. You know, I really want to see God transform this neighborhood, and that's why I'm living where I'm living now.
Cool. What kind of community projects?
Well, we have community gardens, we are having a community house with dinners, and we'd like to invite a lot of people over so they feel welcome. We're really trying to take love to all the streets of the neighborhood.
Very cool. So what kind of people do you show love to?
Everyone, Scott.
Well, as you can imagine, 11 hours in a car, you're going to pretty much talk about everything. So I started talking about why I moved to the West Side and my passion for the inner city, for my concern with the segregation of Chicago, and he mentioned this guy that I should meet that was doing a similar project called the Chicago Eco House I'd be really interested in. So, you know, that sounded good to me, and unbeknownst to me, he was already texting Keelan that we should meet.
Now, this is the thing I love about Scott. He's the type of friend who's always looking to hook a brother up. You know what I mean? He's talking to her, he starts thinking to himself, man, Hannah seems like she'd be a great fit for my friend Keelan. So he starts texting me a play-by-play of their conversation.
I love people. You know, I really love communities, neighborhoods, grandparents, regular parents, children, grandchildren, dogs, cats, other animals. I like going to zoos. I like carnivals.
Saying that, hey, you know what, she has this in common, she loves the inner city, you love the inner city, she's very committed to Christ, you're committed to Christ, you know, all these great things I'm just hearing about. Now, as he's sending me all these text messages, I'm only really concerned about one thing, and that is the number one line item that was on my prayer confession. Is she hot? So I asked Scott, how does she look? You know, and he texts me back, well, you guys are about the same attractiveness level. I'm like, what does that mean, Scott? If I look this girl up on Facebook and I find out that she's ugly, then I know what you really think of me, buddy.
So I was really surprised to see that Scott connected us with the email right away, like the next day. And Keelan responded right away after that about meeting up together. So I thought, oh, I'm gonna check this guy out a little more. You know, Scott had just said, oh, this would be a good thing to meet up, but I really wanted to see if he was single. So I Facebook friended him to tell him that, you know, we should know what each other looks like if we're gonna meet up. But really, I just wanted to stalk him and look at his about page to see if he was single.
Okay, checking out the Facebook, making sure he's legit, loves God, loves people. What's not to love?
So he texted me back her name because he couldn't obviously take a picture of her in the backseat of a car. So he texted her name, Hannah Bonham. I immediately go to Facebook to look her up. Now, fortunately, Hannah's one of those people who love to overshare on social media. So she has hundreds of pictures posted of herself going back 10 years. It gave me plenty of material to go through in order to make sure I was getting a representative sample of how she actually looked. So I'm going through each and every picture, I'm examining each angle, trying to make sure that I can see the front, the back, top to bottom, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. She's a very attractive girl. However, there's one little problem that I noticed in these pictures, and that is she looks a little bit tall. Now you may be thinking, well, Keelan, why does that matter? It matters because in my prayer confession, I made it very clear that I cannot date someone or I will not marry someone who's taller than me. So if she ends up being an inch or two taller than me, then this deal was dead in the water. So Scott decided to set Hannah and I up on a blind date. Even if Hannah refuses to admit that it was a blind date, it was a blind date.
Not a date.
So we agreed to meet at the beautiful East Garfield Park Conservatory on the west side of Chicago. I get there on time, Hannah gets there late. So I just decided to sit on a bench and kill a few minutes and enjoy the atmosphere. About 5 minutes later, Hannah walks in.
So naturally I was a little bit late, like 2 minutes. He's already calling me, texting me to see like where I was.
She's wearing this ugly green smock dress. And I'm just thinking, wow, this girl is eccentric.
Q? Hi, I'm Hannah.
Hey, how you doing?
Great to meet you.
Well, all I could think about at the time was my prayer confession and how tall is she?
I wasn't sure if I would be taller than him. So when I walked up, I saw him on the bench. He jumped up really fast, like really nervous, and I was really relieved to see that we were the same height.
So we decide to go, we sit down, and we end up talking. So for those of you who don't know Hannah, Hannah is quite the master of gab. We're just sitting there, we're talking and talking, check that. She's talking and talking.
So anyways, and then my grandma said that, you know, the rest of the family really needed to stop having FOSBAs all the time. And you know what, how about for the first 45 minutes, I just talk about myself and you don't really say very much.
She's never gonna ask me a question, huh?
So, you know, I start telling him a little bit about my story, and we end up finding that we have a lot of synergy, a lot of chemistry, and my good buddy Scott was right. You know, now I'm the type of guy that gets straight to the point. You know, there's no point in sort of waiting to express my interest in a girl if I think that there's some potential there. I'm getting older, she's getting older. None of us have time to waste.
And that's why dating in community is really important to me.
Yeah. You know what this is?
What?
It's chemistry. Does chemistry make you nervous?
So I tell her right then and there, I would love to take you out to dinner.
So, I'm an alpha dog, and I like to get straight to the point. And I think we have chemistry, and I think we should go out on a date.
A date? Is there going to be parental guidance present?
I don't think so.
Maybe we should just be friends.
Now right there, immediately I'm thinking, it's time to move on. This girl ain't for me. I tried, I did my part, she shut me down. So from this point on, I'm just trying to get out of there.
So I felt so comfortable with this guy that I started telling my whole life story. And before you know it, he had asked me out. And I was so nervous. I mean, this was not what I was expecting at all. I mean, I had planned it out. You know, we were gonna be friends for a while, and then we were gonna date probably, and you know, maybe get married, and who knows. But I was not expecting to get asked out on the first on this first meeting. So I of course giggled. I had no idea what to say, and I proceeded to, you know, say, hey, we could be friends, which apparently he didn't like. I don't know why, but he seemed to want to wrap up the date.
But Hannah kind of keeps prolonging this date. She gets up, she decides that she wants to show me her apartment.
Oh, I left my lemonade.
Oh, that's okay. Do you want to come over to see my house? Because that's totally safe on a first date.
Okay.
Great, let's go. So as you can tell, this is my house. Love is all you need, right? We're really passionate about fixer-uppers around here.
Nice.
So, remind me how you pronounce your name again. Is it Kulin? Kylan?
It's Keelan,
Oh.
actually.
Keelan. Do you mind if I just call you Q?
That's fine.
Excellent.
Or Deidre.
Oh, Deidre. Oh. I'll just call you Q.
I'm just thinking about the entire time is just going home and moving on. When we get downstairs, she gives me the most awkward embrace ever.
Well, see you later, friend.
And I'm looking at this girl, I'm thinking, yo, you just shot me down. I'm ready to move on. I may never see you again. So I just hurry up, get out of there, get on that train, I'm going home, licking my wounds, I'm ready to move on. So, after our first date failed, I was already on to the next thing. But apparently Hannah wasn't quite ready to move on yet.
So I started to scheme of ways I could get him back around again. So my friend Lynn and I planned dinner for him and some of his friends. Luckily he replied first. Then one night I was with my friends Annika and Brian, and I was talking about him and how I'm afraid I had lost him, and they grabbed my phone and sent him a text, you know, wanting to hang out, and of course I let them. I didn't fight too much. And, you know, I proceeded to read all of his Facebook statuses and find different things to Facebook him about or email him about.
At that moment, I knew what was up. Hannah realized what she was leaving behind, and she didn't want to miss her shot at the Big Q sweepstakes. So Hannah and I end up emailing each other back and forth throughout the week. I mean, I'm talking about long textbook style emails. I got tired of typing on the computer, so I asked her if I could call her, which I did. So I called her just to sort of see if we had any chemistry over the phone, because that's the best way you can tell if, you know, you can actually hold a conversation, is if you can talk to somebody for a long time without having to look at them. So I ended up calling her. We ended up talking for 2 or 3 hours. I mean, it was like I was talking to my soul doppelganger. And I was thinking, you know what? This is at least somebody I know that I could have some companionship with.
You know, I really enjoy our conversation. We should talk sometime. So I said, sure, here's my number. Call me anytime. Well, he called me that night. So I called him back. We ended up talking for over an hour.
And I grew up in Kansas, and I'm really close with my family. You know, community is really important to me.
But, you know, I really wasn't sure where this was going, seeing as though Hannah already shot me down, you know, during our first date. So, at the end of that week, it was on a Friday, I believe, Hannah ends up surprising me as she sends me this long email confessing her love for me.
So the next morning, I did my usual kind of freak out and sent him an email saying, you know, we probably should have some boundaries and maybe we should just group date for a while. And, you know, we had something special, you know, that I didn't want to ruin.
Dear Keelan, I think we have something really special here. I don't want to ruin it. So I think we should group date. Send.
Now, was I shocked? No, I was not. But at the same time, I wasn't very happy that she sort of hoodwinked me. So I wasn't really sure what to do here. On one hand, I was flattered that she finally was telling me how she really felt about me. However, on the other hand, she did kind of diss me. So I just kind of let that email sit there and simmer a little bit. I waited a couple hours before responding. And when I did, I just said, hey, you know what? Let's see if we can meet tonight and talk about it over dinner. Because I wanted her to think long and hard about her actions when she decided to shoot me down. So I remember I'm still kind of wavering. I really wasn't sure what I was going to end up doing. So I ended up calling my mom to give her some guidance. I was just going to go show up in some sweatpants, in a hoodie. I really was actually preparing to tell her no, I wasn't interested. But my mom, she spoke some wisdom to me, you know, and she said, hey, you know what, Keelan? Every girl deserves respect. So you should at least dress up for her. Which I did. I ended up putting on some slacks, a nice button-up shirt, and a tie. Thanks, Mom, for that advice, because I actually ended up having a really good time with Hannah. When I ended up going there, I really wasn't sure what I was going to expect, so she got there before I did this time. So I remember looking in the window and seeing Hannah standing up, you know, ordering her food. She was looking good. I mean, there was no more of that ugly green smock. She had herself on some tight jeans, a nice little spring shirt. I was like, whoa, this is one sexy mama. You know what I'm saying? At that moment, my entire calculus about this situation changed. Hey!
Hi, good to see you.
So, we're here about the email.
Yeah.
I know this is a little awkward,
Yeah.
but I think we should just cut to the chase.
Okay.
I don't want a group date.
Okay.
I want this to be real.
Okay, yeah, real.
That sounds great. Let's do it.
And I think the rest is history from there.
Well, not exactly. You see, there was one more thing Keelan had to do before this could be official, and that was to pass the community test. Now, when I mean community, I mean people like Andrew and Tova, and Lynn and Matt, of course, can't forget them. Hillary and Andrew when they came into town, my old roommates Josh and Brian, and can't forget the Park girls, my first friends in the city, and their husbands. Of course, Linda and Caitlin, who I work with, Five Loaves guys, who all had to vet him before, you know, it was official, so that he wouldn't break my heart. We had Jen and Todd, and my little godson Cash, so cute. Tamia Leani. We have, of course, Steph and Ashley. My building family, Manisha and Sierra and the kids. You know, those are just a couple. Of course, I tried Lori, Michelle, Jared, Jerome and Julie. I really tried. James would have let Deb and Keith. I'm glad you guys got in. You know, he got a little tapped out for some reason. And then there's my family. You know, we planned a trip to Portland, which of course was important for it to happen. And, you know, who wouldn't love a trip to Portland? You know, hiking in the gorge, sing-alongs. Of course, you had to learn about the Bonham family flag, Bonham roll. You know, little words that were special like moo-moo, choo-choo, poo-poo, mootsie. The Bonham shirt is important. You know, and other traditions like feeding the chickens and maybe holding them. The garden and the yard. I mean, who needs a yard when you can have a garden? So, all of that to say, he actually passed. and therefore he must be the guy for me.